Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Broom Brothers, the official podcast of the curling group and the Grand Slam of curling. I am John Cullen, and with me is a man who they call him Stone Cold Robbie Doherty because he's smashing glass.
Oh, I hope your day's as smashing as mine is, John. Yeah.
What happened, brother? You sent me a picture of your car. The back window's got a big hole in it.
Yeah, just a slight incident. When you live on a sandbar and the ice is melting, the roads can get a little bumpy with potholes. And we had, shocking. It was 9 degrees 2 days ago, but then yesterday and this morning we had 10 centimeters of snow. So classic PEI. So anyway, few potholes going around, a lot of snow melting. So there was puddles. I dropped my son off at daycare this morning, driving home, just heard this boom and then psh, and I had a speaker in the back. And the speaker must have got air.
Right,
and,
like it jumped off because your back window, you have like a van, right? Is it a van? Or like SUV?
It's an SUV. Yeah.
Yeah, so the back windshield is quite a bit above where your speaker would be. Like it must have got some pretty good air.
Well, it's a tall speaker, in fairness.
Okay.
But yeah, it caught me by surprise. And as you mentioned, I went right into Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme song, of course. And so that kind of was my Serenity Now moment for all those Seinfeld fans out there, just trying to calm myself down. Luckily, I just dropped my son off at daycare. He wasn't in the car. Windshield's being replaced. So anyway, all good. I apologize.
What a morning for you. This is what we do. People think podcasting is easy. We just sit in our house and talk. They're mistaken. Sadly mistaken. This is a tough industry.
And I've got a big gig tonight, John. You'll like this.
Oh, okay. So let's go.
It's affecting my focus. Going up to host karaoke in Summerside for the New Holland U20 curling championship.
Oh, baby.
Or as we all call it, still the juniors.
The juniors. You know what's funny is like people will talk about things being just the way they are when you were young. Like to me, the Canadian juniors will always be the Karcher junior.
Oh yeah.
Because that was what it was when I was a young lad, and I don't even know if Karcher still exists anymore. I think it looks like it does, but I don't know how good they're doing. But yeah, the Karcher juniors. Because we used to call it the Karcher. You used to be like, I want to go to the Karcher.
I remember the commercial that they would air, and it was the father with like the very short khaki shorts, pressure washing the pool or beside the pool. Yeah, that's what my memories of Karcher. I remember just thinking, man, someday I'm going to turn into that guy.
Some great Canadian curling commercials over the years. The AMJ Campbell using the same commercial for roughly 27 years. Was really good.
Lakota with Randy Furby, fresh off definitely like a week-long vacation in the sun. He still had the sunglasses tan lines.
The sunglass tan. Oh man, I love it all. It's a great and beautiful part of our sport. Speaking of our beautiful sport, we just got off of one of the biggest events on the curling calendar, the Women's World Championship. And look, as we predicted on this show, as a lot of betting prognosticators predicted as well, Rachel Homan does lose a couple games over the course of her Worlds run, but in the end does not matter, defeats Silvana Tirinzoni in the finals. Obviously, this event being held in Korea, so a little tougher for you and I stateside to watch all of the games, but of the games you watched, Robbie, and I'm sure you were keeping up with it online and everything, do you have any more words for Team Homan at this point?
No, I don't know what to say. I do have one thing I want to kind of lean in on a little bit. And this is a compliment to Team Homan and, shows what they're really made of. I think a lot of the general discussion over the past, 2 seasons with this team, and since they've been on this incredible run, a lot of people are kind of saying, when's the luck going to run out? When's the steam going to stop? When's it going to? And it's like I think a lot of curlers would know that they're just that good. Like this is authentic and genuine. But you do hear those comments, and I noticed in the round robin, you mentioned they lost. I think their first loss was to Scotland.
Yeah, they lost to Scotland, and they also lost to Korea.
Yeah, but back to back.
Yeah.
And that was the point I was going to make, is they took back-to-back losses, which that team probably hasn't done in a long, long time.
Oh, I don't think it was back-to-back, was it?
I'm pretty sure it was. I could be wrong.
I don't know. Go ahead. Keep talking. I'll look it up for you.
I thought for sure it was. Anyway, my point is, even if it wasn't back-to-back, though, they took not one, but 2 losses. And it was like, you could kind of see, oh, gosh, they have 2 losses now. Are they going to start to lose this and lose that? They didn't. They battled back.
It wasn't back-to-back. The loss to Scotland, then they played Hasselborg after that, beat Hasselborg. It was later in the week when they lost to Korea. Anyway, continue.
Okay, but they got down in that Hasselborg game, too. And they did battle back to win that one. I think Hasselborg came out with a deuce or something. But anyway, my point is they showed.
They stole. Hasselborg came out and stole, and then you're like, oh no, is this? They stole 2. Rachel missed a draw by like a lot.
Yeah.
Like an amount you do not usually see Rachel miss a draw for 1 for.
No, exactly. And I think, it would be easy for a lot of teams, a lot of fans to kind of think that, oh no, maybe this is the end. And they just said, nope, turned her right back around. They kept, they rebounded and went on to win the whole thing. I just think this team is, so for real. It's scary. It's like the good scary to watch them. I mean, it's scary if you're another Canadian women's team, that's for sure. But I think with the trials around the corner, they just seem like no matter how good they are, no matter how great their run has been, they always seem to have a point to prove, and they seem to never fail to do that. So congratulations to them. They face some adversity over there. Plus, Korea's and I know I'm going to take a lot of flack at the next slam from European teams and Asian teams who come to Canada all the time. But, Korea's a long way away. And to go over there and to play that well and to beat the teams they did, like Hasselborg was in the field. Obviously Tirinzoni, some tough teams, Hasselborg, it certainly wasn't a walk in the park, and big ups. I think last episode we said it's theirs to lose, and it sure was, and they didn't lose.
Yeah, no, totally. I think you're right too. Like the World Championships are just in a spot where, the field has expanded to a point where maybe you'd say there are a couple quote unquote free spaces on the bingo card.
Yep.
Where maybe there didn't used to be. We went through, there was all the time, then there wasn't. Now with it being a 13 team field, there is maybe a few more free spaces or easier games. Though that said, Turkey has always played Rachel really strong. I don't know what it is about Dilsat Yildiz, but when she faces off against Rachel, she's like goes into God mode. Teams that are all capable of beating any team on any given day. So it was impressive, and I think it's just, for me, I tweeted this, but I thought this tournament really, if I was giving an MVP, I would have given it to Tracy. Mm-hmm. She was the number 1 third, won the All-Star Award for third. And All-Star Awards don't mean everything. Stats don't always mean everything. But even just watching the games, Tracy was making so many shots, and and the fearlessness. And, I think one thing that I love watching is I really think Rachel, I think Tracy brings out the best in Rachel because she's very calm and she lets Rachel cook, right? She doesn't get in Rachel's way. It's just what Rachel wants to do. Tracy's usually going to be down for and support her for. But I think Rachel has really unlocked something in Tracy too. One of my favorite interactions in curling to watch right now is Tracy does, not all the time, but sometimes will defer to the easier shot. Yep. Right? Like she'll say, I think I just want to throw the draw here or whatever. And Rachel's gotten to a point now where she'll be like, no, you have to throw this really hard run back or we're screwed. And Tracy will be like, I don't know. I kind of like the draw. And Rachel's like, look, we're dead. We're dead if we don't throw this run back. And then Tracy will just make the run back perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think they've really just got to a point where they trust each other. I was so impressed with Tracy in this tournament. Obviously the whole team, Emma and Sarah, fantastic as well. But yeah, for me, this Worlds really felt like, a display of what Tracy brings to this team, especially like you said, they lost 2 games. They don't lose 2 games in tournaments very often. No. And so, just keeping them on track, keeping them on course. We are going to talk to Sarah Wilkes, by the way, coming up, going to ask her about the Worlds and everything. And she talked about Tracy and just said, about what Tracy brings to the team. And yeah, for me, that was the story for Team Canada this week. Was it really felt like Tracy Fleury was their MVP. And yeah, they were fully deserving. You watch that final and it just, Silvana even said it in her post-game interview, and we've talked about it on the show before. You just can't make mistakes against them. Make a mistake against them and they punish you instantly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened in the final. They just had the first half of the game was super tight, felt like it could have gone either way. And then just a couple misses from Alina, bang, bang, you're shaken in 9. So
yeah, exactly. The other thing too is that, like, to add to your comment about Tracy and just the shot making, I find Team Homan, they work as a unit so much better than everybody else. Like, if you watch their front end sweeping, and it's not just the strength that they're putting on the brush and the effect they're having on the rock, but it's the communication. Like, it's a built-in system that they do every time. Sarah and Emma are so dialed in with communicating weight. They know the path they're in, and they're just able to physically sweep really hard. Like, I find the difference between them and so many others is that, sure, every team misses, and Homan team misses too, but they might miss by an inch or a couple inches, where other teams are still kind of closer to a foot, if that makes sense. It just, and it shows with the results. And, as I said, with the teams, like, it was a pretty tough field, and, going to another continent, I don't even know what the time difference is for them, but it's a lot. And just to be able to win, and, it's pretty remarkable. So good on them.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think, we've kind of been discussing this. This is maybe a conversation for after the season is over, but Rachel has put her, she's won back-to-back worlds now. First Canadian women's skip to do it since the early 90s with Sandra Schmirler. Is Rachel, obviously we know she's in the GOAT convo, but is she the GOAT without Olympic success in a year from now?
It's a tough question.
It's hard, right?
I think she does need the Olympics on her resume, Olympic gold, to be, like, officially the GOAT. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to find any reasonable curling fan who's going to say that, they're the best team that ever played the game on the women's side, if that makes sense. And there's been some great teams, no doubt about it. Jennifer Jones, Colleen Jones, over the years, but man, oh man, that team is they've just brought it to another level, like we haven't seen. And they're the bar. They really are the bar. They didn't raise the bar, they became the bar, and everybody's just chasing them. So, I don't know if there's a wrong answer in that. Personally, do I think they're the best women's team to ever play? Absolutely. I think to really set it in stone, that Olympic gold would go a long way to do that.
I think if they win the Olympic gold, I'll put the crown on Rachel myself right 100%. When the Olympics are over. No question about it. But yeah, like I said, maybe more of an off-season conversation, which we are approaching the off-season very rapidly here, which is crazy. But let's talk a little bit about the rest of the field.
Sure.
I thought it was interesting. When Carrie Anerson had her 4 shots at the World Championships, Tirinzoni was going through that unbelievable run. I think it was 36 games in a row, undefeated. Yep. They seemed a clear step ahead of everybody else in the world at that time. Rachel wasn't as good. Now to me, it feels like, and I hate to say this because I really do think they're a great team, but it does seem like Tirinzoni is just a step behind Homan. And we're talking about the second best team in the world here, but it feels to me like it's pretty clear going in. It used to be going into a Homan Tirinzoni game, you'd be like, well, this is a coin flip. Either team could win this game.
Depends on hammer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But I really kind of feel like at this point, I am expecting Rachel Homan to beat Silvana Tirinzoni, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, I agree. And I would, to me, it's not even just Tirinzoni. Like, you're right. They're
obviously it's everybody else. I'm talking about because they're the number 2 team in the world.
Exactly. But teams like Hasselborg, teams like, Gim, those really kind of good women's teams that we see at the slams all the time, who have won slams or made it to numerous finals. They're just, it's not that they got worse. In my opinion, it's that Homan just elevated it. Homan just has brought the sport and the shot making and everything around it to a different level. And you mentioned, in explaining that situation, I forget your exact words, but it was something along the lines of, Homan wasn't playing that well at the time when Carrie had her big run. But I think Rachel, and I could be dead wrong, this is a total guess from the genius head of Robbie Doherty, but it's almost like she knew what she had to do, and she was kind of behind the scenes, putting the lineup together, making the changes, figuring it all out. It took some time, but the old saying, you're willing to take one step back to take 2 or 3 steps forward, and they certainly took 2 or 3 steps forward, if not a lot more. And the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, no question. The other story of this Worlds is Team China.
Yep.
Coming into this event, they had 0 Olympic qualification points, which is, so for the fans who don't understand how this all works, basically the 2 Worlds before the Olympics count for qualifying your country. So we're not talking about individual teams, but, let's say Canada, for example, sent Homan 1 year and Einarson 1 year. All the points go into one pot for Canada. So if you finish first at the Worlds, you get 15 points, all the way down to 1 point for last place.
Yep.
And then the combined score of your 2 Worlds appearances in 2024 and 2025 go towards either gaining you automatic qualification for the Olympics, or you have to go through the Olympic qualifying event where 8 teams will face off for 3 spots at the Olympics in Cortina in 2026. So with that said, China did not qualify for the 2024 World Championships. So they had 0 points coming into this event. They needed 11 points to qualify, which means you had to finish on the podium to qualify for the Olympics. And they do it. They win bronze and they get all 11 points. It ties them with Norway, but Canada got the pan-continental region had 1 extra spot by virtue of China's finish. Wow. It gave them an extra spot, so that put them ahead of Norway. And now China is in the Olympics just based off of 1 Worlds. I mean, what a story, Robbie. It's crazy.
Just a little bit of pressure in that bronze medal game.
No kidding.
Just a little bit,
you lose that bronze medal game, you only get, I believe it's 10 points for losing the bronze medal game. So they would have been out by 1. They literally had to win the bronze medal game.
Playing the hometown team.
Playing the hometown team of Kim.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it was great. Again, we talked about this before when we went on air, but the time zones didn't allow to really see as much as you'd like to. I don't know what the time difference is from Charlottetown to Seoul, Ujungbu, but it's a long time. And the games were on a lot of times when I was sleeping, so I didn't get to see a lot of Team China, but I followed pretty closely and I saw some highlights on social. And good on them. They obviously knew what they had to do. They obviously had a goal and got dialed in and did the job. I mean, that's a big win, beating win. Korea in Korea. So Korea. And looking back, China's had some really good teams over the years. They've kind
absolutely.
of fell off the radar.
World champion.
Yep. And I remember as a younger fan, and I think this was in Jennifer Jones's kind of prime when she was really on top. But I remember, if she would win the Scotties and she'd get to the Worlds, it was like, okay, she's going to be fine. But it's Bing Yuang there because she's really good.
Yeah.
And I think the first year kind of caught Canadian fans by surprise, but then she just kept coming back and doing well. So there's certainly some good curling teams in China. I don't know a lot about this team.
They're young. They're really young. The skip Wang Rui is 30, but the rest of the team is all 24. They're kind of like they had a really good run at the World Juniors a few years ago, and so it's like that team that had it's almost similar to what is going on in Germany with Mark Muscatowicz, where he's a little bit older and he kind of just absorbed an entire very good junior team. That's basically what's happening here with China. But it's interesting that the Chinese thing is interesting to me because, I talked to some people about the pan-continental championships, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Dave Murdoch. I don't remember, but I was talking to someone after, and they were just like, look out for this China team. Like they are good. They played Rachel really hard in the PanCon, and I think they kind of said like, look out, like they're coming. And whoever it was that told me, I wish I remember so I could give you credit, but you were very clairvoyant because they looked excellent. They're right on the cusp of the slams. I think we're going to see them in the slams next year, almost certainly. We know we're going to see them in the Olympics as well. So great run for China. On the other end of that equation, maybe a story that went a little bit under the radar in Canada because we're so dialed in on Rachel and all of her success. the USA and Japan, two countries that we are very used to seeing in the Olympics, both missing out on automatic Olympic qualification. They will have to go through that Olympic qualifying event in Kelowna to get in. Robbie, your thoughts on both those countries this week and just in general?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the U.S. and my thoughts with them is the U.S. has a lot of good players. To me, it was just like they've really struggled more so on the women's side to get that like lineup that really just seems to just gel and just work and play, as well as they could have. Tabitha Peterson has obviously proved that she's a shot maker over the, since she took over skipping that team with her 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
She's a shooter, but it feels like we just haven't seen that run from any U.S. team in the last, little while when it counted, if that makes sense. So they're going to have to pull up their socks. Like we had mentioned, I call it Q school in my head, but they're going to be in Kelowna and to get there. And, it's not going to be a walk in the park. Like we talked earlier.
Norway's there.
Norway is going to be there. And then Japan. There's only 2 spots.
3 spots.
3 spots. So okay.
So they're not panicking, but there's some. Yeah, you got Norway, you got Japan, and then below them, Turkey, who's had really good results over the last few years. Estonia will be in there. Lithuania, who are at their first Women's Worlds, should be in there.
Yep.
Australia, Germany, you would obviously favor the U.S. to make it through that, and Japan as well, but still, it's kind of one of those things. I guess what I was sort of getting at is, we just haven't seen that big push from them. We haven't seen that big weekend. Jamie Sinclair won the players, years ago sort of thing, but we haven't seen that monumental, break the door down and say, here we are. And sorry, I'm laughing at something else that reminded me of nothing. I'll get back to it later. I was trying in my head. I'm comparing curling to Cobra Kai. Sure. We'll get to it later. Important stuff. But it just seems like, we haven't seen that, and they're running out of time and chances to not do that. And what I meant by that, one slip, if you get to Kelowna and you don't play well, and you finish 4th, that's like it's the run's over sort of thing, and you're not at the Olympics. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back to that pressure. The U.S. program has a lot of great coaches, a lot of good players, a lot of great ice and facilities available to them to train. So they'll be ready and they'll be tough, and I think they'll get through along with Japan and probably Norway. But like you said, Turkey, some of those, even Estonia, we've seen some great players in mixed doubles from Estonia. Yeah. So who knows what's going to be there. It could be interesting. Yeah. But if I'm a betting man, I like to think Japan is definitely safe, or one would think. The U.S. should be right behind them, and I guess you got to give it to Norway, but man, Marianne Roervik has been quite good over the last few years, knocking on the doors of the slams and all that. So
we have seen her at a slam too. I think it was last season.
Yeah, it wasn't this year.
No, it wasn't this year. But so it's going to be interesting, and it's in December. You had mentioned
in December in Kelowna, so it's a quick turnaround. You win that event, and then you can't plan for the Olympics. You don't know if you're going to be there necessarily, and then you qualify in December, and then you head off to the Olympics. But hey, it worked for Eve Muirhead in 2022. She came through the OQE and then won the whole damn thing. So
it sounds kind of familiar as a Canadian curler.
Exactly.
Plan for the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly.
Qualify in December.
Yeah, we're making you go Canada mode.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuck on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
US and Japan. But I agree with you. I think you're dead on. I think it has been a case where they haven't been able to find their best team. They've tried a lot of different lineups, even with Tab. I think they found Tab to be their best last rock thrower, and I agree with that.
Me too.
But they still haven't found a way to build a team around her. And I think the world of Corey Tesi as well. I think she's a really, really good third. But I heard Tyler George was on another curling podcast and was mentioning just the consistency sometimes can be he watches her obviously a lot more than I do, and he said sometimes that can be a factor. And I also think with Team Peterson, it was just a weird year for them, right? Both Tab and her sister Tara were pregnant, so Corey skipped a lot of the time. They had their 5th Vicky Persinger in a bunch of events, and there was just a lot going on there. So I understand that it's not always easy. Like you said, get on a plane, go to South Korea. It's not easy. So we'll see. Japan, I think, is the interesting one because, I think in Canada, a lot of us are especially seeing this situation in Scotland, where people are seeing Ross White, for example, win the Scottish championships, and then he doesn't get to go to the Worlds. And I am not comparing Japan to this, but because I think Ross would do probably as good at the Worlds as Bruce, or is capable of doing as good at the Worlds as Bruce would do. But, I think Japan is sort of that case study for, maybe there is something to being selected and going to the Worlds when Olympic spots are on the line, because Japan has adopted the Canadian model, where they have a national championship, and if you win the national championship, you go to the Worlds. And so the last 2 years, it's been an upset winner of the Japanese nationals. We had Miyu Ueno win last year. This year, it's Sayaka Yoshimura who wins. So in both cases, it's not their top team of Satsuki Fujisawa, and the results have kind of borne themselves out. Ueno, I believe, finished 11th last year. Yoshimura finishes 9th this year, and now all of a sudden they're in the OQE, where I think it'd be safe to say if you had Fujisawa at the Worlds the last 2 years, that's probably not. It's probably not the case, right? And so I think it's interesting that, like, this is sort of, I think as Canadian fans, we see teams that feel deserving, like Ross White not getting, or even Faye Henderson winning in Scotland, and they selected Rebecca Morrison instead, and then she had a great run making the playoffs, getting them into the Olympics proper. But that's sort of an interesting counterpoint. Like, well, if you don't select your team, you send people who maybe haven't been there before or don't have the big results that some of these top teams have had. This is what can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing too, like Canada, especially on the women's side, it's not like Japan is a country that doesn't have a lot of depth.
Totally.
Like they have a lot of good teams. So
we've seen 5 different Japanese teams in slams this year.
Yeah. And they're all really, really good. It's not like they're kind of, like my old team, squeaking your way in and just getting killed when you're there. Like they competed and, a lot of playoff appearances. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And I'm surprised to see Japan in that group, but hey, so many spots, and it's a good thing for the sport. That's where the sport's at right now. It's exciting. But I was laughing earlier because when I said I was comparing curling to Cobra Kai, I always see that it's like every time we're talking about the women's side of the game and it comes up to Homan and, who's, is it hers to lose? Yes, hers to lose. But wait, there's this Chinese team that someone said you got to watch for them. And then boom, they come out. It's like, who's the next team going to be to rise up and chase? So it's it's fun to watch, especially this time of year and this time in the quadrennial.
So we had moving on from the women's worlds, the Canadian mixed doubles championships just completed over in your neck of the woods.
That's right.
In Atlantic Canada. And, we know that Brett Gallant, Jocelyn Peterman, by virtue of their Olympic trials win, are going to the Worlds in 2025. So a lot of people were asking, well, then what's this Canadian championship for? It's to go in 2026. I don't know at what point Canada plans to try to steer this back onto a yearly schedule, but in any case, it was a back-to-back, first time ever, back-to-back champions of the Canadian Mixed Doubles Championships. Colton and Kadriana Lott on the podium, defeating Luke Saunders and Marley Powers in what was a very dramatic extra end final. Robbie, you want to touch on the mixed doubles here?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Marley Powers and Luke Saunders played extremely well.
Very well.
Very well. And they kind of proved themselves that, they belong. And it'll be interesting to see how much effort they continue to put into the mixed doubles game over the next few years, because they certainly are capable and they looked good out there. They looked very consistent. That game, like you said, like it came down, is an extra end. But I want to make a comment about Team Lott. Kadriana, I think, and I've said this a few times, is the most underrated curler in Canada on the women's side. I really think that. Some of the shots she made were unbelievable, not just in the final, But I was watching the semifinals. Luke Saunders and I are old friends from, for years and years, just him growing up in Halifax and me just in PEI. And I always knew he was good. But so I was tuned into his game in the semifinals. They were playing New Brunswick. And then as soon as that game ended, I went over to the other stream just to see the end of the lot game. I think they were playing Horgan and Brunton, maybe.
Yep.
Brunton. Kadriana made a shot for 3. I think they were down 2 coming home to win. And it was like, she came through a port. It was very similar to the Selena Negevin shot in Nisku, I believe.
Right, where it was just very, like, you didn't even think a hole was there.
Right, and she just teed it up perfectly through the hole, no fear. And this is to get a berth to the national final. It was, the pressure was there. It was just unbelievable. She made a ton of shots all week. And of course, they like Marley and Luke, they're both, partners. Kadriana and Colton are married, obviously. So they work well as a unit. They know each other. They know how to get the best out of each other. That really showed, but it was nice to see Lot win again. I was kind of hoping for my old buddy Luke, but he's got lots of time left, and the Lots definitely deserved it. But Kadriana, just in my opinion, she really just showed what she could do. And I was talking to, I think it was Carrie Galusha here. The juniors are here now, or the U20 nationals.
Yeah, you're hosting karaoke. Tonight.
Hosting karaoke tonight. Tickets available. Anyway, no, but we were both saying that is how, it's, you got to wonder if she'll get offers from, teams higher up in the rankings.
She made her first Scotties this year with Nancy Martin
and played well.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think she's getting herself on the map, and it's real shot maker, like you said, making those shots under pressure, and we've seen it for a number of years. She made that draw to the side pin against Jocelyn and Brett in the bubble. That's like one of the best shots ever. Just a great team. Obviously, we know how good Colton is too, and be exciting to see them wearing the maple leaf again at the mixed doubles championships next year. Okay. Speaking of next year, the Grand Slam of curling schedule, Robbie, has been released for next year. And we don't need to go through all the events one by one, but we can just kind of touch on some different points. So the Masters will be in London, Ontario. Then the Tour Challenge will be heading back to Nisku, the beautiful Silent Ice Center. Perfect spot for the Tour Challenge, I think.
100%.
The Canadian Open will be returning to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, the Merlis Belcher place. I've heard great things about slams have been there in the past. Robbie, you've been there. I've heard great things about that. And then a brand new facility in Steinbach, Manitoba, which is just about an hour outside of Winnipeg, the Southeast Event Center. It's just brand new. I think it's going to remind us of the Silent Ice Center probably a little bit. I've seen some of the architectural drawings and stuff. It looks incredible.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to be heading there for the Players Championship. And then, of course, the first time the Slams have held an event outside of Canada, we will be heading to Lake Tahoe, Nevada, the Tahoe Blue Event Center for the GSOC Tahoe. It's so special. It gets its own name. That's right. You know what? It's the GSOC Tahoe. We're heading there. So Robbie, I guess just a general overview, your thoughts on some of the locations for next year, and then we'll get into some of the cool things after that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a cool year. There's a nice little mix of new places. And places we've been a few times. You mentioned Saskatchewan being nice. We've had some great events there. It's been great crowds, not just the numbers, but they're really involved. They're loud. It was fun to MC there, if I remember correctly. And Saskatoon's a beautiful city too. Lots to do there. We've certainly had some fun. So that one kind of jumped out at me. The Silent Ice Center was mind blowing this year. The arena itself, just the perfect arena for us. Really,
it was cool seeing the curlers because I got there early. And it was cool because I got to see all the curlers come in for practice and all of the, like, literally to a person kind of stepping into the Silent Ice Center and being like, whoa,
wow.
Like, whoa, we're going to be playing out here.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah. No. London, you know what? I've never been to a curling event in London.
Yeah, first slam there, but they had a great Briar there a couple of years ago, and good curling city. But yeah, it is the first Grand Slam event ever in London.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. And then the last two I want to talk about Steinbach. I don't think I've ever worked a slam in Manitoba. And I've worked there for 10 years.
I get this question on Twitter all the time. Fans are like, why don't you guys go to Manitoba? And I think people don't realize the slams have to be bid on. Okay. We don't go.
No.
What do you think we do? We don't go to Winnipeg and we're just like, hey, city of Winnipeg. We go to City Hall and we're like, you want to throw a slam? Like, that's not how it works. They have to apply to us. And so I believe that, it's just been a case where either there's like Curling Canada events that are going on that they're bidding on or whatever. And I think there has been some slams there in the past that maybe haven't done that great. So it's been a little discouraging. I'm not sure exactly the reason, but typically the slams for whatever reason have not done too many events in Manitoba. But it feels like the right time to be going,
I think so too.
Things are blowing up. It's a brand new arena. It's a little outside the big city of Winnipeg. So fans from Winnipeg can drive in, but if you live in Steinbeck or the surrounding area, it'll be a huge event for your town.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah. And I did lie. We had one slam in Winnipeg at the, just beside the Deer Lodge Curling Club. I think Pete Stetsky and our pictures are on the wall at the Deer Lodge Curling Club. We supported that place pretty well that week. But that was a great environment. I curled once at a mixed in Manitoba and curled in Brandon. And, both times crowds were amazing. Great curling community out there. They get pumped for it. They're loud. They love their own teams, obviously. So, that's going to be a lot of fun. And, it's like old traditional kind of curling Canadian, Manitoba, they traditionally love their curling. And then on the complete opposite side, we're going to Nevada.
Yeah. Lake Tahoe.
It's going to be sweet. Like, it's something different. And, we were so bummed out because I think it was the year we announced we were going to Vegas and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of going to be the kickoff, but we didn't get there. So now, 5 years later, here we are booked to go back to Nevada, just not quite Las Vegas. But I was just kind of researching last night.
It's beautiful.
Lake Tahoe. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. So I can't wait just to go. The curling is going to be awesome, but even just to experience it and see the area is going to be really cool. And I think a lot of people will travel in for it. So it'll be a special one.
Just a couple more things about the slam schedule, and then we'll get to Sarah Wilkes here. Yep. One thing that was announced today as well, Robbie, expansion of the Tier 2. We are going to see 3 Tier 2 events next season as opposed to the traditional one. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I've heard rumors of this for a long time now. It's a chance for those teams knocking at the door to really, for example, how many times have we chatted on here about teams and we say, we remember they came up through the Tier 2, like Carrie Anderson won a Tier 2. We talked about Christina Black this year.
Yes,
she went
totally.
on and, had
made
had
the playoffs
at the Slam and then had a great run at the Scotties. So it's I don't want to say the breeding ground for great teams, but it's kind of a launch pad for a lot of, really good teams to get to that next level and, see who's up and coming. So I think it's great. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for the fans to be able to see these teams, to hear you and I talk about it or other podcasts mention these other teams. But now it's just more chances for them to actually see them, get to know them. And, they might draw more fans out of it, which leads to sponsorship. And it's just a win-win for the sport and for the teams.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like because there have been in the past, it's sort of been you win the Tier 2, you're in this specific event. Yep. With there now being 3 Tier 2 events, not sure how that's going to work. I've maybe heard some rumors that all the invitations will be to the Players Championship. I don't know if that's going to be what ends up happening or not, but stay tuned for that. Going to be very exciting to see that sort of next level of curling being supported. And speaking of the players, Robbie, maybe an interesting scheduling quirk here because we are so used to seeing the players in April. It's sort of the season capper event. This year, the whole Slam schedule compressed. All 5 events are before the Olympics in February. The players this year in January. What do you make of that, Robbie?
I make that I have to have a big chat with my wife here in the next couple of days before this episode comes out. No, it. I think it's pretty cool. It's different, it's different for not just the curling teams, but also the staff and, kind of gets you going a little bit earlier, gets your head around, curling in September, which at least for us in the Maritimes is pretty early, but it's good. And I think it'll keep teams kind of more in a rhythm, and as the provincials and national championships all come forth, they'll have 5 slams under their belt, for the top teams. And I think it's neat. It'll be interesting to see what kind of fills the void after Worlds and all that, or if anything does. But here we are. It's a change. It's kind of like the no tick or no back-to-back tick rule. It's not sure if it's going to be the answer to all of our scheduling issues, but it's worth trying. So,
well, I'll just say this, Robbie. We can't say too much on here. We are the official podcast of the Grand Slams, but I will say this. Obviously I'm very plugged in online on social media, and our CEO, Nick Sulsky, had talked about, or he's, commenting on the schedule this year, gets the schedule announcement, gets a reply from Noah on Twitter. Noah says, "Love having more tier 2, but surprised no event after the Olympics." To which Nick replied, "That we've announced, ...
Ooh, dun, dun, dun.
So maybe there's a method to the madness. Why the Players is in January, you'll have to wait and see. But next year I think is going to be really exciting. We heard Nick last year when he first took over, the curling group first took over the slams. We heard him in a ton of interviews say, that their plan was to hit the ground running after the Olympics. They knew that, with the sport gets a ton of attention during the Olympics and then in the wake of the Olympics, and the slams wanted to be positioned to take advantage of that. And I guess in about a year from now, Robbie, we'll see what the hell he was talking about.
To find out, tune in next week to the Broom Brothers. Subscribe now.
Okay, very super quickly, Men's Worlds coming up this weekend. Team Jacobs representing Canada. Tons and tons of good teams. I mean, you could almost, people do this every year with the Brier. Oh, this is the best Brier field ever, blah, blah, blah. But this kind of feels like it might be the best Worlds field ever. You got Brad Jacobs, you got China, who's also up and coming on the men's side, Mark Muscadovitz, who's had an amazing tour season for Germany. Of course, we've got Retornaz with Italy, the Romsfjell guys from Norway, Bruce Mowat from Scotland, of course, Nicholas Edin. Switzerland is Yannick Schwaller. The US is Corey Dropkin. Korea's in there. Japan's in there. The Czech Republic are in there. Austria's in there.
Austria,
one of the, I think really, Robbie, one of the best fields we've ever seen, if not the best.
Oh, 100%. But you're right. We say that every year. But I mean, I don't see the week, I just don't see the spot on the bingo card for Canada. Like every game is really, really tough. And it's going to be exciting. I'm ready to make a prediction. If
I would love to hear your prediction, because that's about all we have time for before we get to Sarah Wilkes. So hit me with your prediction, Robbie, and then we'll get to the interview.
Team Jacobs, baby. They're winning. Double Canada year. Yep. It's going to be a double Canada year. I'm calling it right here from, I'm not going to give my address, but Charlottetown, Prince Edward Islands.
I don't think
after the smashed window.
This doesn't have to be notarized, Robbie, so you don't have to worry about that. But there you go. There you have it. Double gold for Canada. Robbie Doherty has predicted it. And speaking of gold for Canada, Sarah Wilkes, a member of the back-to-back gold medal winning team at the World Women's Curling Championships for Team Rachel Homan. So great to chat with her, not just being a lead, but also just about everything going on with her and her team. And she's also a sports psychologist. A lot of people maybe don't know that, so we get into that. And unfortunately, Robbie wasn't able to sit in on the interview because of the aforementioned smashed glass incident. So you're only going to hear me and Sarah, but it was a great chat, and we'll get to it right now. All right, I am pleased to be joined by the newly crowned back-to-back world champion and a lead. I always love to be able to just talk directly to a lead. Sarah Wilkes is here. Thank you for being here, Sarah.
No problem. And thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, we start every show, Sarah, with the top 4. I'm just going to ask you 4 quick questions in rapid succession, and you just give me the first answer that pops into your head, okay?
Okay.
All right. Who is someone you've never curled with before that you would like to?
Oh, gosh. Alina?
Okay, nice. If all the rocks are great, both sets are great, which color are you taking?
Red.
What city is your favorite place to curl in other than your hometown?
Calgary.
Nice. How would your bitterest rival describe you?
Oh gosh. That's a good question. I don't know. Competitive?
I feel like a lot of people answer competitive, but they actually mean like asshole. Like when they say I'm competitive, they actually mean that I'm a jerk.
It can go a lot of different ways. Yeah.
True. True. That's true. Like I don't think that about you, of course, but I'm just, yeah, if it's your bitterest rival, maybe. Um you as I said off the top, you're now a back-to-back world champion. That's gotta feel amazing. Talk to me about it. Describe the feeling.
It's surreal. When we were still in Korea after we won, like all of us were talking, and I'm like, it still hasn't really hit me yet. Like it's just such an incredible feeling. Now coming home to our families and settling back in, I'm like, oh wow, like this is pretty cool, pretty incredible for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, you obviously you're not like old in the game, but you've only been on this team for a few years now, about 5 years, and you've kind of worked your way into this sort of situation where you're now on the top team in the world. You're a back-to-back world champion. Is that something that you always thought was possible for you?
Yeah, I think, just no one gets here without having the belief in themselves and their teams that they're on and their teammates. And so just, yeah, always just having that belief in myself is just kind of a way to keep moving forward and believing in your teammates and the goals that you're aspiring to. Definitely helps keep you motivated.
I want to go back 2019, you make the worlds for the first time as third for Chelsea Carey, and not the result you wanted there. I think you were the first team in an X number of years to not make the playoffs at the Worlds for Canada. How did you get over that? Because I know sometimes for athletes, you go to a big event like that, you don't have the result you want. Sometimes that can be a mental block. It can be tough to kind of get over that. What did it look like for you to try and, move past the disappointment of that?
I think just looking at it kind of as a experience to learn and become better as an athlete, as a team. Obviously, in the moment, it's not easy to do that. You're upset and frustrated, and you know, looking at it from that curious mindset and learning isn't easy in the moment. But after some months have gone by, it's like, hey, what happened there? Like were we not prepared? Were we, you know, was it just not our week? Like, what was it? And look at it from that perspective on both an individual level and a holistic level as a team. Um, like I said, not immediately, maybe a bit later.
Immediately, you're smashing
um,
stuff and
yeah, not
yelling.
feeling great about it, but yeah, eventually have that debrief and look at it that way, and kind of separate yourself from it. Kind of, in my mind, at least, that's the only way to kind of learn and get better.
So what was the conclusion that you drew after that when you said, I went introspective mode, thought about myself, my team, like what conclusions did you draw after that was over?
I think a lot of it is just like being open and honest with each other, like going into events like that, like, hey, how's everyone feeling? Are we still tired from the Scotties? Are we feeling prepared? Like, what do we need to be physically and mentally ready? And having those open conversations going into big events like that allows you to be able to fully support your teammates the best that you can. And, the way that we won the Scotties that year was it was
Crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think going into Worlds, we were still a little bit riding that high instead of like debriefing that and then preparing for the next event. And we talked about that a little bit. And so, like, my biggest takeaway is just having those conversations with your teammates leading into those events, really checking in, seeing where everyone is mentally and physically so that you're prepared for the next one and leave the last event kind of where it was.
Right, because I guess in some sense, maybe you felt like, well, the goal was almost winning the Scotties. Like that was crazy that we even won the Scotties, and it maybe is hard with such a quick turnaround to the Worlds to kind of like reset yourself to be like, oh, well, there's like another goal we could accomplish here.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like kind of parking that and then moving on and reestablishing your next goal and really keeping that in mind. Like you said, the turnaround is so tight, especially when it's an international world. So that was definitely a huge learning moment for me.
Nice. Now, I feel like I personally have never really heard this story. So and I'm sure that means some of the fans haven't either. But tell me how you found your way onto Team Homan, because, obviously COVID kind of was a weird factor. You were on the team before COVID, but that also was kind of a strange factor in all of this. But we'll get to that eventually. But how did you initially end up there? Like, I know you had spared for them a couple times, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then what did it look like in terms of, when you were sparing? Was there a feeling like, oh, maybe this is going to lead somewhere? Was it a total shock when Rachel called you? Like, can you walk me through that?
Yeah. Emma, Rachel, and I have known each other like forever. Like growing up in Ontario, we're only a year apart, so we competed against each other for a really long time, and our paths crossed like a million times over the years as competitors, but also playing together. Like I spared with them. I think it was in like a bantam zones or something like that. Like
Right,
when I was
okay.
like
When I said spare, I
14.
meant like
No, I
in
know you're talking about
2019, but
2017, I
okay.
think it might have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like our path, we've known each other for a very long time. And there's lots of mutual respect there as competitors. And in 2017, like Joe was at Mixed Doubles Worlds and they just needed someone to come and play in Champions Cup. And it was just a one-off. Like there was never any like thought of it going somewhere else because they were like the best team in the world at that point. Like you're not thinking there's going to be any movement there. And then gosh, my memory is so bad. You're really exposing me here.
I mean, you could make something up. Maybe that'd be more interesting. I don't know. But
no, I think it was 2020. I think Rachel reached out to me
yeah.
and it was just like via text. She texted me one night and was like, "Hey, do you have time to chat?" I was like, that's an interesting message. And then the rest was kind of history. Things just kind of got rolling from there. And yeah.
Do you know like why they targeted you specifically? Because I think obviously that was a big decision to move on from Lisa, who they'd been playing with forever. Were you ever made aware of, why they thought you would be a good fit? It's because it sounds like it was sort of a surprise to you. So was there ever any conversation about that?
No, like I wasn't really made privy to like how they came to the decision to kind of add me to the team and part ways with Lisa. But I know like as the four of us, like me, Joanne, Rachel, and Emma, when we formed our team, the four of us, yeah, it just felt like a really good fit. But I don't know like how they got there. Curling, it's so like
Of
us
course.
being our own GMs, and it's hard. Like it's hard for sure.
Oh yeah, not saying it's not difficult. I just, I feel like, and maybe this is just my ego talking, but like if Rachel Homan called me and wanted me on the team, I would be like, me? Why ever do you want me? Like I would just want her to tell me I'm so good or whatever. We want you because you rock. You're the best. You went.
I never asked her. No.
Okay, well, I will. I'll
There you
text
go.
her when this is over. I'm gonna ask her, what was it about Sarah? Because she doesn't know. Maybe you should
Here, then
tell
you
her.
can let me know.
yeah, exactly. Well, so part of that move was that, I know you had played some front end before, but at that point in your career, you were mostly known as a back end player. You went to the Worlds as a back end player. Was there any trepidation on your part, moving into a front end position at that point?
Not into second. Like in second is like a position that I was super comfortable with. I love sweeping. Like I've really kind of taking it as this thing that I want to master. Like I really enjoy like sweeping the last rock, like putting it on the pin. So that was something that I was actually really excited about. When we added Tracy and like we had the discussion, I was like, I'm lead now. Like I was way more nervous about that because I'm like the top leads make it look so easy and it's not. And I was like so nervous about that transition, but the transition to second felt really natural for me because it is so similar to third. Like there was excitement just to get to sweep more, but the transition to lead was definitely a little bit more nerve-wracking.
Yeah, no question. I mean, thank you for saying that. And I will be clipping the part where you said playing lead is really hard. And I will be sending that to anyone who says it's not, as a lifetime lead myself. But what did you do? Because I think there is this sense out there, and not even from top players. I feel like I hear it from people at the club level and stuff too, where maybe they get an opportunity in their own club to play with someone they've wanted to play with, but that means they do have to move to lead, which I agree with you. I think especially with the 5 rock rule, second and third looks a lot more similar than it ever used to. But you're right, lead is kind of its own thing. You're almost like the goalie on a hockey team. It's like you're playing the same sport, but you're doing kind of its own little thing. I think people would love to hear from someone at the top level who made that change. What were some of the things that you set out to do when you're like, oh, I'm nervous about this, I've got to try to figure out how to do this? What were some of the things that you were doing or thinking about to try to get yourself used to playing that position?
Yeah, for me, it was a lot of, really, of course, there's always a focus on technical, but I wanted to really be able to dial that in so that I could give a really good read to Rachel, because she throws a lot of the same lines as me, what those lines are doing. Like if she's throwing the same line as me for that extra point or whatever that is. So really focus on that, really focus on weight control, because that's basically what lead is, right? You're drawing 90% of the time. So really focus on that. And that was just a lot of work with speed traps and just like throwing, the top four tight or tight and a one, like over and over and over again, and like getting a read out of my hand. Do I think it was close? Did I overthrow that? Like, what was it? So I was really in tune with my body and what the rock was doing. And just figuring out how to like best support my teammates. Cause for me, like, I can make all my shots, but if I'm not out there supporting my teammates, like, that's a huge part of every role. But at lead, I just felt like I gotta throw my two, sweep my teammates' rocks, help them be the best they could by getting a good read on my rocks and the ice, and then go from there.
I love what you said about the lines, that usually, if Rachel's going to have to make a crucial draw either against points or for an extra point, it's probably going to be following your line. I think that that's super interesting and maybe something that people don't often think about. So I think that's great. And did you and Rachel then, like, are we talking about not just you wanting to give her good throws on those lines, but also like matching your throw a little more to Rachel's for that purpose?
Yeah, I think that's the goal for the whole team, right? Throw it as similar as possible so that our rocks track as similarly as possible, and then we can get a really good read on the ice. And it's not always possible when I have bad rocks too. It's like, well, I don't think it was me. Could have been the rock, but just to take as many variables out as possible, so that she's super confident putting the broom down for that draw against or for extra points, whatever it might be.
I love it. I love it. That's really great insight. And I want to go back now so you're on the team now at this point in 2020. Again, COVID is a disruptive factor. Teammates are having babies, lots of stuff is you're having babies, like lots of stuff is going on in there. But I want to talk about the first couple years as a team. You get on the team with Joe and Emma and Rachel. And then even the first year with Tracy, the success wasn't quite there as far as, winning Scotties and stuff like that. Carrie goes on her sort of legendary run and everything. What did the first couple of years of being on the team look like from your perspective? Like, how did you kind of feel like it was going? Because to get from there, I guess the question is like, to get from there to here, where you're now sort of the undisputed best team in the world, what was the kind of like sort of process for moving through maybe those years where you weren't having as much success as you would have liked?
Yeah, I think like you said, COVID, like it was a weird time and we weren't really competing much. And like we formed this new team. And at the time, I think it was like 18 months till trials. And we're hoping this COVID thing will just blow over and we'll get lots of reps together in the fall. And then that's how we're gonna be ready and feel ready for trials. And then there wasn't really a season, right? And so in Alberta, I think at some points we were able to get on the ice together, and at others we weren't. So we had to be really creative in our training and kind of figure out what we had to do as a team to move the yardstick, even though we had like 5 games together, right? It was a strange time at the beginning for sure, but kind of all along the way, we were just trying to figure out what we had to do to gel and form and make progress as a team. And that's like looking at our games, looking at game tape, like doing technical together, getting team reps together any way we could leading up to the trials. And
it just didn't it just didn't happen. I get it. I mean, it was a weird time for sure. And so then at the end of that, Joe decides to step away, and you're looking for another player. Tell me about the decision to land on Tracy, because I think at the time, if I can recall correctly, a lot of people were very surprised by that move. It wasn't really a name that was on people's radar. I think people saw the personalities of Rachel and Tracy and maybe saw that as a bit of a weird mix. Before Tracy's even on the team, what are those discussions looking like in terms of adding Tracy to the team?
So, like, we were just as surprised as anyone to hear that Tracy was available. We were like, "What? Are you sure?" So when we heard that, we were like, "Wow, that would be a really interesting addition to the team." And obviously, the team would look a little bit different with where she would slot in. But we were all open to it. We all just wanted to do whatever we had to do to make the best team we could. And I think I reached out to her. We had a couple conversations. Tracy chatted with everyone else, and then the rest was history. But yeah, it was a huge surprise to know that she was available. And like, she's just such a dynamic player, and she brings so many, like, she's just a value add in every way possible. Like, her personality, she's such a calming factor. She's so smart. Like, she makes a ton of shots, and like, how lucky were we to be able to add her to our team?
No, totally. I think it definitely shocked everybody at the time. And that first year, it didn't go so good. You didn't make even the Page playoff at the Scotties. And, I always thought the critics were a little harsher on you than you deserved. I remember myself, and not to give myself credit, but I can remember writing in my newsletters, why are people signing a death warrant on this team? Like they're still, like, I think you were, 4 or 5 in the world or whatever it was at the time, and still winning a lot of games. But what was it about the transition from that first year to that second year where all of a sudden, I think, from the start of that second year to now, you guys have lost, like, I don't know, 12 games or whatever it is. What changed from that first year to second year where you really saw your team kind of ramp up to where you are now?
Yeah, the first year, it was a lot of like getting to know each other, figuring out where we fit on the team, what our roles are. I mean, I think I was like 27 weeks at the Scotties and like 27
Right.
weeks pregnant at the Scotties. I didn't even play all the games. Like, so it was just kind of finding our groove, right? And I remember our first game at the Slam, like, we're all really nervous. We're like, we don't know how is this gonna go? Like, we don't, like, we think this is it, but we don't know. And facing the world's best competition, we just kind of had to go out there and do the best we could and trust in ourselves. And at the Scotties, we got into that sudden death game and lost on the last rock, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, so disappointing. And that just kind of is the story of the season, right? But like, my memory, I'm like, I don't think it was all bad. Like, I think we qualified and everything. We made a couple finals. Like, it was actually a pretty good first season together as a team. We were all playing new positions at that point. Rachel was sweeping, Tracy was in the
Right.
house throwing third. Like, so we were all just learning our new roles. And then at the end of the season, did some reflection and kind of shifted things around for Tracy to be the true third, Rachel to go back in the house. We brought on Donnie as our coach, and we kind of all just like did some reflection on what we can do to, make a couple more shots, be cohesive in this team that we have now, because Tracy and Rachel have now shifted again, right? And bringing Donnie on was really helpful as well. Like, he just has such a strategic mind. That was amazing to have him on board for last year. So yeah, like you said, I feel like the critics were a little harsh that first season. I don't know. In my mind, it didn't feel that bad. And it was just like, really, the narrative was written after that one sudden death game at the Scotties, right?
I agree. No, I felt the same way watching it, and I think too, to, I guess, an intelligent observer or whatever, you just thought the 4 of you as a mix was good. It was going to work out. You're going to figure a way to work it out. The 4 of you are too good for it not to work out. Was the conversation difficult after that first year in terms of you switching the positions around, getting Rachel back in the house, getting Tracy down to third? Tracy hadn't really swept that much before. Stuff like, was that a tricky conversation, or was it something the team kind of realized we just have to do this?
Yeah, I think, reflecting back on what I said at the beginning of our conversation, you and I, it was like, just having the faith in your teammates. So we all just trusted each other to do whatever we had to do to make the best team. And because that's what we wanted to do. We just want to go out there and win and support each other in the best way possible. And it was a pretty organic conversation the way it happened. And we all just kind of were like, yeah, I think this is it. Right. Like when I was away at Champions Cup, like I was about to give birth, I think Rachel was in the house for that event and Tracy went to sweeping. And it just felt really organic. Like obviously I wasn't there, but
from what I've heard, they told me it was very organic.
It was good. Yeah. And so then that led to the off-season conversations and making that decision moving forward. Yeah. And just like being like, yeah, we all trust each other to do what we have to do to win.
Now talk to me about Rachel, because, I think anyone can see, playing at the highest level that a female skip has ever played, and maybe a skip in general. It just feels like she can make every shot. She sees everything on the ice, has unbelievable confidence. The run that she's on is unparalleled. You're the lead. You have a front row seat to all of this. What do you see in her that stands out beyond just what we can see on TV, that she's making all these shots and she's clearly a very impressive athlete? Like, I'd love for you to tell me, like, what is it that we don't see that makes her so good?
She's just like such a driven individual. Like in order to perform at the level she's performing at, like she's just like unrelentless in her pursuit of excellence, right? Like it's incredible the things that she does to bring out the best in her teammates and bring out the best in herself. Like she's just constantly doing something to be better, right? Like it's incredible. And I'm so like in awe of her at times, the shots that she makes. I'm like, oh my God, that's gross. Like, how are you doing this? And it's just like she's just so hardworking and just like constantly pursuing something new to be better. Yeah, it's incredible.
I think you bring a unique element to this too, because you are a psychotherapist. You work in sports psych, and you have kind of that that background as well. Can you tell me about Rachel as an athlete from that perspective? Obviously you would have worked with a lot of athletes before. Like, what do you see in her? Maybe trying to divorce yourself from Sarah, the teammate, and be Sarah, the sports psych. Like, what do you see there that, kind of allows her to be so good?
Yeah, just someone who I don't want to like repeat myself, but yeah,
sorry,
like,
I don't know if that's a similar
okay.
question, but
No, it's just that constant pursuit of excellence. Like she's constantly just trying to find something to be better, like that inch to be better than her competitor, because everyone out there is so good, right? And just such a supportive teammate. Like, yeah, I would summarize it as just like kind of like curious mindset. Like, what can I do to be a better teammate, be a better thrower? Whatever it is, just constantly trying to figure it out and put that puzzle together.
No, I think curiosity is a great way of putting it, right? That it would be very easy to stop being curious. She's been a top player for 20 years. It would be easy to say, well, I've been doing this forever and I'm the best, so who cares? I can stop. So I think that is a really good way of putting a bow on it. As you went through, studying, in your field, what did you learn about yourself as a player? Was there things that you were learning as you were going along where you're going, you know what, I was kind of doing this wrong the whole time?
Yeah, it's like as I did my master's, there was a lot of like self-reflection that they kind of make you do.
I don't want to learn about myself. Come on.
I was like, again, really? But yeah, it was just like for me, like I think I might have posted something on Instagram the other day about it, but like as a young athlete, I was so tied to winning and losing and so tied to the emotions that came with it. And it was like, if I lost, it was so upsetting. And like, it was like big emotions, like sadness, anger, like frustration, all of those things. And like, it was like, if I lose, that makes me a bad person. Right. Like, it was just like, it was so enmeshed together, like the results and how I felt about myself as a person and the emotions that I experienced. And so like, yeah, during my master's and during that self-reflection, it was just like figuring out a way to like experience those emotions that come with losing, because you're still going to experience them, right? It still sucks. No one wants to lose. We all put in a ton of work and we want to win. But it's like, how can I just create a little bit of space between those emotions and my reaction? It's like, yeah, I'm still frustrated. I'm still sad. I'm still angry. But that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. That doesn't mean I have to have this like big emotional response. Yeah, I would say that that was my biggest takeaway.
Did being a mother impact that at all too? Because I know some athletes talk about that as well, that, you know, all of a sudden there's something bigger than the game now, where even if you're down on yourself, you get home, your kid's there, you're like, oh, what, like, did that have an impact also?
I think, yeah, I would say that impacted all areas of my life, right? Like, aside from just being an athlete, like all areas of my life, it's like, yeah, there's something else that's bigger than everything to me right now, at least. Like, it's hard to imagine like loving someone as much as I love my daughter, right? And like she always just makes me, not always, she brings me she brings me a
In
ton of
theory,
joy.
she always makes me smile.
Yeah. But no, like coming home after a long day, whatever it is, and like having her there, picking her up from daycare, it's just, yeah, I don't want to be cliche and say it gives you some perspective, but yeah, I guess it does.
Oh, you can be cliche if you want. I don't care. That's totally fine with me. Do you bring, as a teammate on your own team, do you bring some of your psychology background to the team as well? Or is it, because I'm assuming you probably work with an outside sports psych as well. Is that something that's sort of welcomed in the team, or you kind of just leave it to someone else because you don't want to feel like you're driving the team too much? Like, what does that balance kind of look like?
Yeah, it's once I started doing my master's in counseling psychology, it was like this like flip in my brain, like the switch like turned on and I could never like unhear it and unsee it. Like all of these things that I've learned and my like psychotherapist taught, it feels like it's always on. Um, but it is something that I like actively try to turn off, like as a teammate, and in other areas of my life as well. Because that's not my role in those moments. Like of course it's always on and running in the background, right? But no, that's definitely something that I kind of take a seat back and I'm Sarah the athlete in that moment. I'm not Sarah the therapist. And let the professionals do their job in those settings. Yeah.
That's got to be hard though. Like, that must have been an adjustment for you.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, like and everyone has their own way of doing things too, right? So it's like just trusting in the process, allowing them to do it their way, even though it might be the same as I do it or different, like that's okay. And that's just the way that it is. Yeah.
I want to talk about sweeping, because I do think that, you know, you've gotten yourself to a place where you are absolutely in the conversation for best sweeper in the world on the women's side of the game. And as you said, you had played a lot of second before, but you'd also played a lot of third, and coming onto Team Homan, that you'd been more of a back end player coming in. So clearly, I'm assuming sweeping was something you targeted as wanting to work on. Can you walk me through that a little bit? Because I think the fans would also be interested in that. Like, how did you kind of go from, all right, maybe I'm envisioning myself as a back end player, to now I'm playing front end and I've got to be sweeping all the time? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, it was just really becoming like a student of sweeping, like watching other people do it, talking to people about like, how can I get that like the proper technique? Like, what do I need to do? Where do my feet need to be? Where do my hands need to be on the broom? Like, what kind of workouts do I need to be to build up the strength to get in that position? Because there's so much of sweeping that's like really unknown, right? Like, you can see someone sweep and be like, wow, they're a great sweeper. Like, they're holding that really well, or they're really making it curl, or whatever they're doing. And it's like, but what are they doing to do it? So a lot of it for me was just like studying sweeping, figuring out what other people are doing really well, like what broom angle they are, like what their body position is, and really working on like trying to replicate it, trying to do it that way. And I've done a lot of work with Glenn Polly on like how to get more weight on the broom, like how to position my body so that I have maximum weight on the broom when I'm sweeping. Um, and yeah, just lots of off season like training,
Yeah.
just like going to that dark place and getting stronger and building up the capacity to like sweep the extra end shot in the 15th game of the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you were excited about, oh, I might be on the brush for a critical sweep to the pin or whatever. Was that like also a mindset shift for you, or was that immediate? Like, no, that is what gets me going with sweeping.
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed sweeping, even as a third. Like, it was something that, yeah, I always really enjoyed that aspect of the game, like shaping a rock down the sheet and helping make those shots for my teammates. So yeah, I would say it was immediate. Like, it's funny, all these different positions that I've played, like, I've never really thought about like shifting my mindset. It's just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. How can I be really good at that? Right. So yeah, it was definitely immediate excitement to be able to sweep a bit more.
I like that. I like that thought that it's not your mindset is just always, I want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. So there's not this big, oh, I'm doing something way different. It's just, I got to
Mhm.
be the best at whatever it is I'm doing.
Yeah, like, playing lead doesn't even like, the first season I did it, I'm like, "This doesn't even feel that different from playing second." Like, the shots are different, but I'm like, I'm just going out here and trying to win games with my teammates.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's really all it is. They always say you
Mhm.
make 8 shots, you're probably going to have a pretty good end. So
Mhm. Yep.
just a couple more. I wanted to know how, like, is it cool from your perspective to know that you are the most popular curler on the planet? Because
It was
you won the Grand Slam of Curling All-Star Game vote. So I think by
apparently
definition, that means you are the coolest curler on the planet.
apparently, I heard that I won that. Yeah, I don't know. I was shocked. I was like, "There's so many other cool people that curl." Like, "What?" But thanks, everyone. Appreciate the votes.
Do you feel like you're gonna have to do something extra cool in Nashville now to like back
Oh
up your status as the
gosh.
top vote getter?
I mean, or just keeping me, like, I don't know.
Maybe you and I can work on something. I'll be in Nashville with you, so
Okay,
you and I can do something real cool together.
perfect, you can help me out. You
I'll
plan
try.
it, I'll do
I don't think I'm that cool, but I'll see what I can do. I'll try my best.
okay.
Now every interviewee, I try to, do some research, find out something, fun. It's not that bad. Don't worry. It's not, don't worry. We're not gonna have to bleep anything out here or whatever. But
Okay.
I heard that you had an incident with a pothole in Korea. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, like, did I trip in it? Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah.
I heard that you like almost like you thought you maybe twisted you rolled your ankle pretty bad or something in a pothole.
I'm pretty clumsy, like, my teammates say that about me, so, yeah, apparently I'm pretty clumsy, but, yeah, after the semi, we were getting into an Uber, and I just kinda, like, rolled my ankle off of the curb into a pothole, and everyone was like, "Oh my god." I guess it looked pretty bad, but I was fine. Yeah, no problems there.
I heard that the Ubers in Korea were also an experience.
Yeah, Emma said she was hungry at one point, and he pulled over and got snacks out of the trunk for her. It was so sweet.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Were
yeah, it
they
was
good
awesome.
snacks like that she could have, in the middle of competition, or did she have to kind of be like, "Oh, but that wasn't what I meant."
We saved them. Yeah.
The driver must have been like, "What the hell? Like
Yeah,
I got the snacks out of the trunk and now she's not eating them?"
you said you were hungry. No, it was very sweet.
That sounds very nice, and nothing I would do if I was an Uber driver. I'll tell you that for free. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us here on the Broom Brothers. Total pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations again on the back-to-back world wins, and we'll see you in about a week here at the Battle of
Yeah,
the Sexes, which is going to
yeah,
be very exciting.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me, John.
So there you have it, a fantastic chat with Sarah Wilkes. So great to talk to her. Like I said, love talking to a fellow lead. And that's really all I care about. I just want to talk to leads all the time. Those are my people. And Robbie, this is normally where we play a game, but I think in honor of today, Robbie, the game I have for you is to just learn how you can get tickets to Grand Slam events next year. I'm just going to teach you. That's the game. I'm just going to teach you how to get tickets. So as you're listening to this episode, early bird weekend and full event passes for Canadian events on sale now. Head to the grandslamofcurling.com/tickets. They are available now. I mean, I guess it depends on where you're listening to this, but Friday, March 28th, noon Eastern is when they officially go on sale. If you want to head to the Lake Tahoe event, packages for that will be available Monday, April 7th at 10 a.m. Pacific. So it's 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Join us in Lake Tahoe, our first ever event outside of North America. And if you want to stay updated on ticketing details for everything else, it's the event schedules, all the exclusive content, head to the grandslamofcurling.com, or you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X. Way more ticket details coming. And speaking of ticketing details, Robbie, the Battle of the Sexes sold out.
Woo! That's going to be fun.
Who do you got?
Team Mowat.
All right, all right, Team Mowat. Robbie
what
says.
What about you, John?
I'm taking Homan. I'm taking Homan, man.
Okay,
I think they're playing great. Here's the thing, okay? If Bruce Mowat is in the World Final, it will be played about 24 hours before the Battle of the Sexes. So Rachel's going to be nice and rested. Bruce will have come off a very stressful event. I'm going to give the edge to Homan, but I think it's just going to be a great event. Can't believe it sold out. What an amazing showcase for the sport. Yeah. It's going to be a ton of fun. You and I are both going to be there. Not sure when the next Broom Brothers is coming at you, because Robbie and I are going to be away for a couple of weeks. We're going to be at the Players, and then we're both going to be in Nashville as well. But we'll have something for you probably after that. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening to the show. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. And we'll be back. We'll be back with lots of great curling content after the Players, after Nashville, and into the late spring, early summer, whatever you want to call it. We'll be back. So stay tuned. Thanks so much. Bye.
See you in Tirana.